Hi everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Raw Conversations. I'm your host, Sharon Cryan, founder and CEO of FoodNerd Inc. We'll be sharing a ton of insights and having meaningful conversations about some amazing people in the plant-based community, and also with experts in the field and researchers in the field. And really our goal is to have some raw conversations about our food supply, how it's gotten there, and what we can do to just arm ourselves with as much education as possible to live our healthiest lives. And so I'm excited because today is our first episode, and our guest today is Cole Hastings, who is a vegan athlete, bodybuilder, influencer, freelancer. He's a multifaceted person, but is one of the most enthusiastic plant-based people I've met. And he's also local to where FoodNerd is, so he's in Western New York as well. So Cole, why don't you give me like a background and tell everybody about yourself, and we'll start there.
Sure. So like Sharon said, my name's Cole Hastings. I work through Instagram and YouTube, sometimes other platforms, to educate people on how to mainly build muscle on a plant-based diet, but I educate them on basically all aspects of a plant-based diet. And I really fell in love with videography and video editing, which is why I made that YouTube channel. And so on the side of training people to become plant-based athletes, or maybe they already are plant-based and they just want to learn how to build muscle and eat right, I also do some video editing work for several different people. Like Sharon said, I'm a freelancer. So just trying to educate people in that way, video editing, videography, all that stuff. I really love to do that as well. And then sometimes I make videos about personal development and self-help, because not only do I love to do that, but I also think that it's in some ways related to, a plant-based diet, because that is just another way that you are bettering yourself and bettering the planet. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, no, that's a great summary. And, kind of one of your main things I think that people can really, like equate with you is that, you are a bodybuilder, right? So you very much really focus on protein, right? And I think that's something that I want to talk about up front, because obviously that's like the number one thing that people always ask to a vegan is, how do you get your protein? And it's just so conceptually, confusing, but it's just really due to a lack of education. And so what do you say to people when they say, where do you get your protein?
So surprisingly, I do still get asked this. I don't know. I kind of figured that this myth would be busted by now, but I'm happy to tell people about it. So when people ask me where I get my protein from, first I start off with, listing the highest sources of protein in a plant-based diet, which are legumes, with lentils being the highest, seeds, nuts, like all these things at least have a bit of protein in them. Tofu and tempeh, these soy products, most soy products are very rich in protein. Sometimes I'll have mock meats as well, where they're made from soy protein isolate sometimes. And no, that's not the most healthy thing ever, but it's still a protein source. And most of the other food I eat anyway is very healthy. So there's also seitan, which is made out of vital wheat gluten. So if you have a gluten allergy, that might not be your best option, but if you don't, that's one of the highest sources of protein. And then just like, a lot of people don't understand that pretty much every single thing I eat has at least a little bit of protein in it. So, when you have a balanced meal with like whole grains, maybe some seeds on top, with a fat source like tahini, that's another one, tahini, peanut butter, those nut butters are really high in protein. So if you have a whole grain, a fat source, some type of seeds on top, a green vegetable such as broccoli, a cup of broccoli provides 4 grams of protein. and then a protein source, like an actual high protein source. This will be like tofu, tempeh, seitan, one of those high ones that I talk about. Then that meal is going to add up to maybe 30, 40 grams of protein, depending on how big it is and how big you are. So first off, there's that. And then also there's a lot of skepticism about how much protein you should be eating if you are an athlete. And the thing I always tell my clients and everybody else is that you should be eating at least 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. And a lot of people think that you need to eat like 1.5 grams per pound of body weight or like 2 grams per pound of body weight. And it's just not necessary at all. And that's why a lot of people think, oh, you can't get enough protein to build muscle on a vegan diet because you need this many grams per pound of body weight. But that's not really the case. So me being, around 215 to 220 pounds, I only eat like 130, 140 grams of protein per day. And that's really all I need to build muscle. So yeah, all those sources are super great. Also, plant-based protein powders can help if you aren't hitting that goal that I just mentioned. But yeah, also just understanding that most things I eat have protein in it.
Right. I think that's, not just the biggest misconception about plant-based, but about any diet, right? Like, so when it comes to protein, like people don't realize that if it exists, right, it has protein in it, right? Like every cell membrane it's made up of protein. So to say that something doesn't have protein that's in the botanical world, right, whether it's a carrot or a leaf is scientifically false. Everything has protein. It's just a matter of the quantity of protein. And then the composition of the protein. So I think that's, first of all, like the science behind it is very, very, very basic, across the board. The athletic nutritional industry really has just pushed, protein so hard without really giving a true definition. Like they've basically summed it up and it's a very complicated, process that happens in the body, and it's everywhere. And people also don't realize that your body synthesizes its own protein every day, right? So the average body can make anywhere from 40 to 60 to 80 grams of protein, depending on, who you are. So our body's naturally making proteins every day. Plus we're getting a ton of protein from our diet. So I think protein in general, as in 2020, it's still, like you said, it still blows my mind that we still have so much learning to do, but we've known all of this for decades and decades. But I think it hasn't really, the true science behind it hasn't really hit mainstream. And that's why you get a lot of people not educated. And so when they see a vegan, they're like, how do you get protein? Because they have been sold this, kind of marketing pitch that protein equals animal products, right? And that's just really not the case. And so, and now we see that, right? Now we see bodybuilders like yourself, and we have like, Olympic athletes and world's strongest men that are now plant-based, because it's so much more than just quantifying a number of protein, that you're intaking every day. It's everything else that is on the spectrum of health that is just as equally as important. And so I kind of want to dive into a little bit, because I know we spoke about this before, is, what we really stand for, and what my big message is to get across is that it's not just about macros, it's about your micros, and it's about, being able to understand your body and how it operates as like a whole, instead of just thinking of your body isolated in this macro workout sense, right? Because if you're just focusing on the physical aspect of your body, I want to look skinnier, I want to look more toned, and you're just focusing on just skeletal muscle, and that's really it. You're missing, every part of the body that is so insanely important. And so micronutrients, to me are one of the biggest things that people are miseducated about. And it's really sad because literally, as Linus Pauling, stated, that one deficiency in one micronutrient can cause such an array of side effects and negative effects in the body. And there's, over 100 of them that we've identified that we know we need. And so, for example, if you're just crushing, protein shakes all day, but you're not getting all your micros, you're going to have a really hard time with digestion and absorption of that protein. So, for example, like vitamin B6, it is so insanely important, and it helps the enzymes really break down those proteins into the amino acids and get them into your bloodstream. So if you're deficient in vitamin B6 and you're trying to build all this protein, all these muscles up with all the protein that you're taking, you're not going to be able to do as good of a job. So, and also vitamin C is super important for absorption and digestion of protein. And so I feel like, we're getting to a point where, because plant-based is still on the rise, it's forcing people to really learn more and question the status quo of protein, which is exciting. So I guess your experience in, diving into more of the overall health and micronutrients, what is your journey been like in learning more about micronutrients, and like how have you educated yourself on that as a bodybuilder specifically?
The way I've educated myself on pretty much anything I do in my life is YouTube. I just think it's one of the best resources to learn about anything, as long as you make sure that the person is credible, that their sources are credible, of course. But, my journey with it is, since, going vegan, I've been so much more focused on hitting my micronutrient goals as well. And one of the ways I do that, I don't actually track my macros, but sometimes I do for my full day of eating videos. And when I do that, I like to use the app Chronometer. And that app shows you not only all the macros you hit, but all of the micronutrients that you hit in a given day. So like every time I've done that, like I've hit all my micronutrient targets and like the full protein amino acid profile they have on there too. That's not a problem with vegan protein, by the way, for people who think that like the amino acid profile is not as complete. Like that's a complete myth as well. But yeah, it's really just focusing on what antioxidants, what micronutrients do I need that are really going to optimize my recovery time. And like you said, which I honestly didn't even think of, is increasing the absorption of the protein that you take in. So, I mean, I could explain maybe some of the ones like I wouldn't like to say I focus on some more than others, but I guess I kind of do in a sense. Like I think like all the antioxidants, vitamins A, C, K, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, by the way, because I know you have a lot more expertise on nutrition than me. And yeah, I think all the B vitamins are important. Magnesium, zinc, selenium are super important for like, what's the word I'm looking for? Something about your muscles. But zinc helps, I know helps increase testosterone in men. Magnesium is good for like muscle, like it's almost a natural muscle relaxer, I believe. So honestly, it's just like you said, so much of your fitness nutrition goals should be focused around micronutrients because they are pretty much just as important as your macronutrients.
Right. And the crazy thing about, and I go back to Linus Pauling and the institute that he has set up and now is just incredible leader in this research. They really show that, as it is nowadays, we don't know everything, right? And so while we know that, there's vitamin C or magnesium is really great for this one particular thing, it's also great for like thousands of other chemical, reactions that we don't even comprehend. So then that's why he says, when you're deficient in it, it can cause an array of issues. But when you have the adequate amount, it literally helps in so many different aspects of the body. And so that's why I always push for focus on your micros, because you're never, we rarely see, especially in a country like America, we rarely see any, malnourishment on the average basis, right? Like if you are eating on a daily basis, you're going to be getting all the energy that you need, right? But what we're more lacking right now in a country like the US is really full optimal health, right? That's what I like to call them. Your micronutrients are really the functionality and the quality of your health, where the macronutrients are your energy, right? Like that's the simple ways how they're broken down. And so I think one of the big things that I really hope, people can take away is that, to have a broader view of what they call health and nutrition, right? So don't just think of it energy in, energy out. That's very outdated. And we now know of like incredible compounds that literally can make the difference of you feeling like a superhuman one day versus you not wanting to get out of bed, right? All of those micronutrients, those are really key. I mean, that's what communicates the brain and the gut, right? And so really making a super effort to just know that even one day, today I'm going to eat, raw carrots, or I'm going to eat something that I don't normally eat, but I know has nutrients in it, and adding in those little daily things to your diet. And one of the easiest way to get more micronutrients is to literally like eat the rainbow, right? So when you're looking for more diversification of your micronutrients, color is key. When you can look, if we were, I guess, in the forest, right, and we're looking for nutrients, those colors really pop out to us for a reason, for a biological reason. And the array of nutrients really can equal the array of color in your diet. So when you look at your plate, try to make it as colorful as possible. It's what I always tell people. Throw some really cheap nutrient dense vegetables like carrots or purple cabbage, right? Spinach, bam, 3 colors right there. You're getting an array of micronutrients, and then throw some tofu in there, right? And so it's kind of like, it can be super simple, and you don't have to know all the micronutrients to know that you're getting them, but there's ways to start simple. And there's a lot of really great supplements out there. I'm not a big fan of supplements, but if they're whole food plant-based supplements where they were created from a whole apple, a whole, Brussels sprout or whatever it is, it can make your life a lot easier. So I guess from a supplemental standpoint, I know, like you mentioned, there's a lot of plant-based protein powders and such that are out there. And there's a lot of really great supplements that are out there as well that can help you get more of your macros and your micros at the same time. So, for you in particular, when you're trying to hit certain caloric goals because you're trying to make gains, or you're trying to really, educate, somebody that you're training, talk to me a little bit about calories, and how you tie that into actually building up muscle and getting somebody on a regimen where they are eating, more whole foods, but also, making sure they're not calorically, in a deficit.
Right. So I'd like to clear something up that a lot of people don't believe is true, that you can't build muscle while in a caloric deficit, because you definitely can, as long as you're like eating good nutrition and pairing that with the right resistance training. But usually for people who are trying to, gain mass, get bigger, build more muscle, I'll put them in a slight caloric surplus. So your maintenance calories is how many calories you burn throughout the day. And if you want to gain weight, you have to eat like a few hundred calories above that. If you want to lose weight, you have to eat a few hundred calories below that. And it's not too difficult to calculate this. It won't be super accurate. It's almost impossible to be like completely accurate, but you can just go on Google and search like TDEE calculator, which is total daily energy expenditure, which is the same thing as maintenance calories. And then based on the information my client gives me, I'll do my own calculations, and then I will usually depending on what their weight is right now, I'll use a calculator to see how much protein they need. So I'll just do 0.7 times their body weight in pounds. And then I'll give that's how I figure out their calories and protein. And then I use some type of macro calculator to get them their carbs and fat as well. And usually, I believe this is good for all vegans, but especially vegan weightlifters and people trying to build muscle, is they should definitely be eating primarily carbs. Like most of their calories should be coming from carbohydrates, because those are the foods that provide you the most energy, allow you to recover quicker, and they're the foods that are usually the healthiest on.
And they make you feel not crazy, because when you cut out carbs, it could be quite emotionally difficult, which is huge for your customers. I mean, they're probably like, if you don't take into account the emotional part of a human, right, when it comes to their diet, you can really set somebody out. Someone can really set themselves up for failure if you're not, accounting for that. So I guess I do want to, I want you to kind of touch upon that too. Like when people get scared or they're like, I can have carbs. Like, what do you tell people for that? Because that's huge. People are terrified of carbs.
Right. So carbs are the body's preferred source of energy.
And your brain needs it. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Your brain needs it to function. And then people have this idea that carbs make you fat, but being in a caloric surplus is what's going to make you, above everything, is going to make you gain weight. Now, you can have parts of your life that actually do cause weight gain, like too much stress, not sleeping enough. These are things people take for granted. But above everything, it's going to be being in that caloric surplus. It has nothing to do with carbs, unless you were, I don't know the full science on this, but you can correct me. Unless you're eating just simple carbs, as in processed carbohydrates, like Sour Patch Kids, like refined sugar, those things are not natural, and they will probably influence your body to gain more weight than if you were eating just like complex carbs. So I always give my clients complex carbohydrates. These are the actual whole foods. By the way, good question for you. Are fruits simple carbs? Because I've like heard that, but people seem to think that because they're simple carbs, they're going to make you gain weight, when we all know that fruit does not make you gain weight.
Right. So yes and no. It depends on a few things. It depends on the level of the where they are on the ripeness scale, because the fruits do change and they go through a process of converting from a complex to a simple sugar. And that's the more ripe they get. So, but still, because those sugars are attached to natural fibers and all of the other, natural compositions in there, right, your body's not going to break it down the same way it's going to break down a Sour Patch Kid, right? And that's one of the, that's the thing that I could probably geek out the most on in my life on a daily basis, is processing, right? What that does to food and how it literally makes it so insanely non-identifiable and toxic to the body. And so when you're talking about a whole food and then its natural form, the way that we would find it in nature, that's the form our body wants it in, right? That's the form where we are going to benefit from it. And I have, personally, I've gone through many different phases of my health, and, some of the best foods that I have eaten, felt the most incredible on, were mainly fruits, right? So a large part of my diet, especially when I'm working out a lot, comes from fruit. It's such a quick way to get incredible energy, and you're getting a ton of micronutrients, and you really can use that fuel. I mean, if you're working out or you're going for a long run or a long bike ride, you're not going to be crushing processed foods. You want to have bananas, dates, things that are very, your body can turn into quick energy, but also the fibers. You're getting both both the best worlds. So yeah, absolutely. So fruits, they're good. They can be both, but they're incredible for you, right? Like if, let's be real, if we were all in, it wasn't 2020, we were all in nature and we all had to go find food. If we were starving, we would go for the banana, right? We would look at it, we would find it, we would climb the tree, we would do whatever we would have to do, and that would be the most satiating. Or a mango. I mean, it's our one of our most like it's almost like nature couldn't have made a more delicious thing for us. Like it's bizarre when people starve themselves of it, because it's so good for the planet, right? They're things that we can grow, that are just delicious, good for your body, and great for the planet. So please don't be scared of fruit if you're listening. Please don't. So yeah, keep going.
Talking about how I like set up everything for my clients.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of want to talk about, when you're giving them the plan, and that's something that's specific to you. So if anybody wants any questions for Cold Services, reach out to him. We'll put your info in there as well. But as far as what are some of the emotional sides of helping somebody plan to eat healthier and build muscle? Like because I love talking about that aspect, right? Because to me, I kind of want to leave off with that, because if you are looking to build muscle and you want to be healthy, I think setting yourself up for consistency is key. Being able, yo-yoing, like I'm just going to eat nothing but protein and I'm going to, or I'm going to go keto or something. And, well, it's very much hype and people can get on that hype. It's not sustainable and healthy for the long term, right? And so being able to sit back and say, okay, I do want to lose weight and I want to, just look shredded, great. But what is something that you can actually live with for years on end, right? That emotional component. So I guess, what do you kind of tell the people you work with, about that aspect of it? Because that's, to me, I would say that's probably the hardest thing.
That's a tough question. So what I tell them about how
the side of being able to keep up with this, it's not just building muscle, it's a healthy lifestyle, and choosing foods that you're going to be happy eating every day, that you're not going to have that yo-yo effect with, which
right. Yeah.
happens.
So
a lot of people on keto,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess the first thing is just explain that to them, and that this is not a trend, that you want it to be part of your entire lifestyle. So I feel like fitness is just a part of who I am. And once you can integrate that into who you are, which means that you're making it a habit, you don't even have to think about doing it anymore. Eating healthy for me is just the norm now. I'll have vegan fast food sometimes, but I know what's going to make me feel good, and I know what's going to make me feel like crap. So I choose to put the things that are long-term going to make me feel better, over those things every time. And honestly, just telling them that it is going to be tough at first, because if you're going through a dramatic lifestyle change, it's always hard at first. But like I said, there comes a point in time where even working out, it's not something I need to think about or really oh man, I got to do this today. It's I look forward to it because of how good it makes me feel. So I feel like a lot of people are too focused on what they have to do to get there and not focused on how they'll feel once they do get there. So the process may be difficult. Like I said, it gets easier, but also just think about how good that food is going to make you feel and how good that workout is going to make you feel, because it releases endorphins in you. It gives you a well-being boost like nothing else. That's why I would consider myself addicted to working out, honestly, because I just love the feeling that it gives me. And so just telling them that, the food, you, I mean, it's the most cliche thing ever, but you are what you eat. And
Mhm.
do you really want to be eating? This is how I look at like eating animals. You got to think about what that animal went through before they actually got murdered. So for most places, it's like factory farming, put into a cage, trembling, scared for their life. Like they feel awful, and then they're killed. And I know maybe there's no science to back this up, but like when you kill something that its whole life has been nothing but like absolute insanity and hardships and like depression and just being feeling terrible, and you eat that, you're kind of eating that energy in a sense. You're eating death. Whereas with this diet, everything is alive. Like it has to ripen at a point, and then it dies on its own and like gets to that point on its own. So um yeah, just stuff like that. Just understanding that like everything, like if you're only eating whole foods after every meal, you're not going to feel sluggish. You're going to feel like more energized. And that's so rare with a lot of things that people eat, because sometimes when they eat a big meal, they're just like, oh, I'm so tired. But with all these whole foods, these complex carbs, it's just like, man, like I have energy throughout the day. So I guess just telling them the end result of this, understanding that at the start, it's not going to be super easy, like taking on any new habit, and they don't have to go full in right away. Like if you want to incorporate some snacks and like junk food, I mean, I think that's like healthy to do depending on your lifestyle. But like whatever you were eating before I put you on my plan, like just slowly wean off of it instead of jumping right in, because then like you'll lose motivation right away after like a week, because like people jump into like they try to work out like 7 days a week right away and eat super healthy 7 days a week right away, and then they get burnt out. So
That's
it's
the
like
yo-yo.
yeah,
You
exactly.
get really
So
into it.
so yeah, it should definitely just be like a slow, consistent process of trying to improve yourself and not trying to just get it all done at once right away.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's, I think that that's one of, that's the most important thing, right? Because at the end of the day, we know, the science shows that if you're in a positive state of mind, you feel good about yourself, you feel good about what you're doing, everything chemically is better in the body, right? And one of the things that you mentioned is that, for you in particular, being plant-based is you understand the moral and the ethical side of it. And, there is a lot of science, that has come out that says, when an animal, for example, like you mentioned, there's science. So when an animal, any species experiences certain types of fear, anger, those are hormones, right? Those are chemical messages from your entire endocrine system. So it actually changes the physiology of the animal. So absolutely do you now eat those hormones, because hormones cannot be destroyed. So when you are cooking that steak, or you're having that piece of pork, you are eating those hormones, right? So it's not like everything just disappears and now it's just protein. No, you're getting the entire aspect of the animal, which when a human body does eat hormones that are from an external source, it, like I said, it doesn't just go away. Your endocrine system has to be influenced and affected by that animal's hormones and has to respond accordingly. So whether that's you produce less hormones, natural hormones, or you produce more, it absolutely, the science is now starting to show that there is a huge impact there. And there's a lot that we didn't know that happens when we eat these animals. So I'm glad you touched upon that, because, so many people talk about it from the emotional side, and the compassionate side, but there is a huge science side of it that's showing that it's not good for us to take in these external hormones. And, we're now seeing that in the impact it has on, for example, early puberty, right? We're having young, boys and girls that are hitting puberty way too early, and it's because of the influx of animal hormones in the diet, right? So there's a lot of science that's coming out that's actually kind of scary, honestly, to be able to see the way it's impacting each generation. But that's one of the good things that, if a lot of people will say, well, I want to build muscle, I want to be healthy, but I don't want to be vegan. Can I be flexitarian? And that's the thing where you can be whatever you want to be, right? That's the amazing thing. But educating yourself is the best thing to do, right? So if you want to incorporate more vegetables into your diet, to me at this point, I always tell people that's the best thing you can do. And then you'll start to feel so good from that incorporation that it will crowd out all the bad food. So it's the personal journey. And that's one of the things that I can say I struggled with when I started getting into fitness, when I was in college, is I was so yo-yo, because like literally I'd be like so intense for a month and a half and I'd be so fit because I would eat nothing but like, salad, and I would be eating, protein shakes, and then I'd be working out every day, and then I would literally fall off the wagon because I wasn't taking care of the emotional part of me that wanted consistency. And so I think that that's huge, and I hope that a lot of people feel like when they make these decisions and they reach out to people like yourselves who's guiding them on a healthy way to build muscle, they're not leaving that part out, because that is huge. That part of understanding what's good for us emotionally throughout the entire health journey is just as important, as the physical. So I don't want to take too much of your time, but I wanted you to maybe, if you have any other like last minute tips that you would give anybody that is looking to build muscle, or wanting to begin bodybuilding as a process, maybe there's some people that like have never worked out before and they're like, oh my God, I need to work out, especially after COVID, right? We're just like sitting in the house all day. We're all just like, I don't want to move, because a body at rest stays at rest, right? A body in motion stays in motion. So how would what's some tips that you would give to somebody that wants to actually start trying to build healthy muscle?
Well, first off, you definitely have to have the right workout plan that's hitting, pretty much every single one of your body parts. And you want to be training your muscles, each muscle group, at least 2 times per week. So on the current program I'm in, I'm doing a full body workout at home. And by the way, for anyone listening, you can get just as good of a workout at home, even if you have no equipment. I have literally a pull-up bar and a backpack that I use that I fill up with like books for weights. So, and I've still been gaining.
Good idea.
Yeah. So I've still been gaining muscle during quarantine, during this whole time. So maybe for beginners, you want to do some type of like full body split or upper lower body split. The full body split I do every other day. And then the upper lower split is like upper on one day, lower on one day, maybe a rest day then, and then repeat it. So you get like less rest days than the full body, but it's still a good start. And then, like I said, if you're just starting out and you don't want that guidance and you want to figure it out yourself, which is totally fine. You can like look up TDEE calculators on Google and figure out how much you need to eat every single day in order to gain weight, to gain muscle. And that's how you're going to get stronger, is by having the right nutrition. But if you eat 3,000 calories worth of potato chips, you're not going to build muscle. So like we've been talking about, your macros and micros got to be good. Eating mostly carbs, hitting that 0.7 grams per pound of body weight, paired with getting consistently stronger with your workouts. So let's say one workout you do 5 reps of pull-ups. The next time you do that workout, whenever that is, you want to make sure you get to 6 reps, or you increase the weight maybe in your backpack if you're doing it with a backpack on, or you can improve your form. All 3 techniques there are a form of progressive overload, which is how you build muscle, build more muscle. And then, yeah, doing that within a caloric surplus by eating the right foods, good quality protein sources, high carb diet, lots of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, seeds, nuts, and I love my soy products because they just help me hit my protein goals so easily. And there's not obviously this isn't for this podcast, but soy will not give you man boobs or like lower your testosterone or anything like that.
That's a whole other separate one we have to talk about. That is, people are so scared of soy, which is like saying I'm scared of like a black bean, right? I mean, it's definitely, we'll have to set up a separate one to kind of go over that. But yeah, no, those are like incredible points. And, like I said, if anybody, I will make sure to leave Cole's information attached to this podcast. So if you have any questions about how to, just to build muscle, how to start that physical fitness routine, you can feel free to reach out to Cole. He's awesome. He's always going to give you the healthiest advice. But Cole, I want to thank you so much. I'm excited. This was our first podcast ever. And, I hope that everybody listening, enjoyed the talk. And if you have any questions, please reach out. But we're excited to keep this, going. And above all, make sure everybody, is staying in their heart, staying in a place that makes them happy, because no matter what you do, whether you skip the gym or not, or if you eat a bad meal or not, making sure you're happy with yourself at the end of the day is what's going to lead to the healthiest life. So we'll leave off with that. But Cole, thank you again so much. And everybody, we will see you next time on Raw Conversations. My name is Sharon Cryan, and nerd on.